Welcome back to Grounded Spirits Podcast, where we're learning how to stay rooted while flying high. I'm your host, Laura Lynn, and today we are going to be talking about the soul, mind, body, and spirit again. But this time we're going to be talking about the way that it communicates, or they communicate rather, because they have different communication styles and different, I would even say, different languages. They also speak, quote unquote, differently depending on the subject that they are engaged in. So we're going to be talking about the disciplines of academics and how they relate to the soul, mind, body, and spirit. And then how do they know? What are their ways of knowing? How do they perceive and understand knowledge that comes into the being? So all of that and more on this episode of Guided Spirits. So I'll see you back after the break. Grounded Spirits Podcast is a Bellesprit production. For more information about Bellesprit or to submit your own creative idea to Bellesprit, check out Bellesprit, Bellespri, on Instagram today.
Alright, so let's start with soul. So soul is most aligned with the humanities. And if you remember from our last episode, the soul is also part of, or most aligned with, the fire element. And so what are the fire signs? Leo, Sagittarius, and Aries. And this I'm reading directly from Ila Institute. So Ila is spelled I-L-A. You can also find it on Instagram. And it's pinned at the top. So, Leo, the subjects that are most aligned with Leo are the performing arts, so choir, dance, theater, and it's also life science, so biology, botany, zoology, ecology. And so you may think that the mind would be more aligned with life science, right? Because the mind is associated with natural sciences. But Leo in the soul, we would look at these life sciences differently. So the great book that I'm always referencing is called Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmer. And she is a botanist, and so she went to school, has a PhD, all in botany, and so she had to learn the Western, quote-unquote, Western way. But the book beautifully entangles the Native American tradition of looking at plants. And so biology would be looking at the body, the human body, or not necessarily just the human body, right? All bodies. Botany, plants, zoology, animals, ecology, the relationship between us all. And so looking at it through indigenous eyes. And I really like that word, and I'm learning to like it even more, because indigenous, we're all indigenous. It doesn't matter who you are or where you come from. Like, your ancestors lived off the land for centuries. And you can trace it back, like in Ireland, you have the Celtics and like these pagan rituals before St. Patrick came. And in every situation, that was just the first one that came to mind, aside from Native Americans. But everybody has, like, all cultures have this way of connecting to nature. Even like in Eastern Europe, there are myths, and not necessarily myths, more like folklore, of how our ancestors worked with the land. Even in Frozen, in Scandinavia, they talk about how to interact with nature. So that's what I mean when we say that Leo is part of the fire sign and how it ties back to humanities. Because humanities, the way that I would define it, is the study of how to be human. So with performing arts with Leo, by learning how to express yourself through song and dance and movement and words. I said that in a question mark because I was thinking about theater, like how do you express yourself? And so then that made me think about Euphoria with Zendaya, where she is channeling Rue. Like Rue is a real person in an alternate reality that Zendaya is channeling so that we can experience the story of Rue. So it's kind of beautiful in that way. The next one is Sagittarius. So Sagittarius, on this post by Ela Institute, it says that humanities, so Sagittarius is humanities, like in and of itself is humanities. And I made this before I did all this research. Like this was made probably like 2 years ago. So it's like so crazy how it's still lining up. So humanities, so that's like philosophy, foreign language, theology. Think like what Sagittarius in the 9th house means, you know? It's like all of those things. So instead of travel, foreign language, you know, hand in hand. And Sagittarius is also for history, so that's the classics, art history, world history, law, etc. Next we have Aries, or last but not least we have Aries. So Aries is political science, international relations, public policy, debate, and I would argue that these things come from the soul, because we're always, like throughout history, we're always trying to figure out how to best govern ourselves, and that's why you have the rise and fall of empires over time. We're always trying to figure out, like with political imaginaries, how can we best rule? Right now, I'm rereading The Sword and the Stone, which is part of the Once and Future King. We had to read it in high school, but I hadn't read it since. And for some reason, it was just gnawing at me, like, hey, you need to read this book. Hey. I guess like intuition, I don't know. But it just kept coming to mind. I'm like, where am I even going to find this book? Luckily, there's this app called Hoopla, Hoopla. You can find it on the App Store. And if you have a library, an LA library account, you can get Hoopla for free. And they have a bunch of audiobooks on there. And so literally in a week of just driving to work and back, I listened to the whole book. And now I'm like referencing it to everybody everywhere because it's just so insightful. Anyway, in that book right now, Arthur just came up with the idea of the Knights of the Round Table. And he's saying because in a circle, no one's above anybody. We're all equals. And I thought that was really brilliant. Then the reason why he wants everybody to be equal is because he wants to make might right. He doesn't want people to listen to you because you're forcing them, because you're going to kill them if they don't listen to you. He wants people to listen to him and respect him as king because it's the right thing to do without needing war. And so, and all of this comes from his education. And it's so cool because Merlin specifically says that by learning about the 4 elements, so fire, air, water, and earth, that's how you get a well-rounded education. And so that's what we're talking about today. So they just finished Soul. Oh, not just finished. There's one more part about Soul. But then by learning all these different things that I just talked about with Leo and Sagittarius and now Aries, by learning all these different things, you're going to get more in touch with your soul. And then by learning about the other subjects, you're going to get more in touch with those different parts. And so what Merlin is saying is that by learning about a little of everything, you'll be a polymath, which means that you just know multiple subjects. But then you'll be able to fully integrate your soul, mind, body, and spirit to be able to, quote unquote, rule your soul and to allow your soul to be its brilliant self without the constant fighting of the rest of it. So think of your soul like the nucleus of the cell. If the rest of the cell isn't going to listen to the nucleus, then you're not going to have a very successful cell. And that's kind of what's going on with you in your life. If you don't feel successful or you don't feel like you are where you want to be in life, it's because you're not listening to your soul. And some of you may not even know how to, and so this is the first step. This is for people who are very academic and want to get in touch with themselves, but it's just really hard for them to understand or to get in touch with the spiritual side. So if you know somebody like that, like, send them this message if it's not you. So that's why political science is part of soul. The next one under Aries. So again, I'm looking at the post on Ela Institute. It's pinned at the top. So the second part about Aries is health and wellness. So I feel like this is a no-brainer. Well, actually, maybe not so much, right? Because you would think that health and wellness would be part of the body. But who really makes the decisions for your body? Like, it has to come from your soul. And that's why, like, diets don't work for everybody, because it has nothing to do with your body. It has to do with your soul. And your body is just holding on to the emotions that your soul is trying to communicate, and your body, and like maybe you're like, your mind doesn't want to hear it, and so you just like say later, and you just store it in your body for later, because your soul is producing this energy. So if you have a lot of headaches, that could be part of it too. So health and wellness, it all comes from the soul. If you listen to your soul, you will be in the best shape of your life, because you'll be eating the things that you need to eat by intuitively eating it, not by counting carbs and doing this and doing that. That's not natural. It's natural. Your body will tell you how much it needs to eat. Your body will tell you what foods you need to eat. Like, for instance, we went to this place, and it's my favorite, mom and pop burger place. And I always get a burger there. And then for some reason, this last time that we went, like, my body was like screaming at me, like, or maybe not my body, maybe it really was my soul, like, please get a salad this time. And I was like, I don't think so. But I ended up listening and getting a salad. Let me tell you, it was the best salad I have ever had. Like, it was perfect. They had so much chicken. It was grilled chicken, like amazing juicy chicken. And normally they only put like a little bit on chicken, like, and then you have to kind of like space it out so that you don't run out of chicken. Let me tell you, I had chicken in every single bite. Oh my gosh. And then it was so huge that it lasted me the entire like day and a half. Like, it was such a good salad. Oh my gosh. But anyway, my body was so happy that like it didn't need to eat that much of the salad, because it was just like proud of me that I listened, that it knew exactly how much to eat. And so it was just like really cool to like have that like deep sense with my body/soul, or like my soul or my body listening to my soul maybe. So even though I have like these categories, I'm still like fuzzy on how they interact, like the union between them, but I'm pretty good about where they are individually or like separately. Now it's just a matter of like bridging it all together. But yeah, so it all comes down to health and wellness and like listening to so that your body listens to your soul. We'll leave it there. So we'll be right back to talk about the mind. Do you like learning how science and spirituality can come together? If so, then you're going to want to stay tuned for my new podcast called Ela Radio, where I interview intellectuals and we learn a little astrology. We're going to start putting up episodes in the few weeks, and so I just wanted to let you know that it will be coming soon. Okay, so we're going to start with the mind next. So the mind is mostly grouped with, if I can find it, here we go, I'm back to my chart. So this chart that I'm looking at is on Grounded Spirits. It's probably like one of the first ones up there, but it is the second one. So the mind is part of the natural sciences, which makes a lot of sense, because it's the earth element. Our minds are very rigid, and it's really hard for us to expand or open our minds. Even for somebody who has an open mind, you still always want to like try to prove yourself right, and that's like because the mind is part of the ego. I'm not sure the exact relation. Like, are they the same thing? Is the ego above the mind? Is the ego like a subset of the mind with other stuff? I don't know. If you have an idea, please let me know. Grounded Spirits on Instagram. But yeah, so the mind is part of the natural sciences, so that's why the way of knowing is through logic. Like, your mind will only believe something if it's logical. And that's why it's so hard to connect to our souls or to our bodies or to our spirits, because they're not logical. And so it's like, as we drive, quote unquote, with our mind, how are we going to allow these other parts of ourselves be heard and understood and actually like listened to? And like, how are we going to get our mind to allow these other parts of ourselves to take the wheel of life, you know? Because some things don't require logic, but for some reason we're so indoctrinated in thinking that they do. I forgot to mention these parts about soul. So with ways of knowing, like I just said, logic is for mind. For soul, it's imagination. So that's why I was saying that you could go down in your soul forever and keep pulling things out, and because that's your imagination. You can always imagine something new, creative, something unheard of. And the thing is that what's crazy, and that what people don't really know or believe, is that your imagination is not coming from nowhere. It's coming from the universe, because it's part of the universe. Your soul is the same. It's like your soul's a portal into the universe. So everything that you imagine is real. Everything you imagine is real. Whether it's exactly the way that you would imagine it to be, or if it's just like slightly different, or sometimes it's like a metaphor. But whatever it is, that energy exists, or else it wouldn't have been able to come into your head. So that's for soul. The way of knowing is through imagination. And then the way of expressing, or the way of like sharing this. For soul, it's through folklore. So stories, legends, myths, all of that, it just comes from your imagination, and then you can say it orally or write it down or act it out. Back to that Leo with the performing arts. It's the way of getting our stories out through film, whatever the case may be. With the mind, we talked about logic, and so of course, logically, we need thoughts. And of course, our thoughts exist in the mind. Okay, so natural sciences. So let's go over the natural sciences in the mind. So first we have Capricorn. So Capricorns are very ambitious, and so I said that business is the subject that the Capricorn falls under, or like is tied to. So that includes management, finance, marketing. It's so funny because business, like money doesn't exist. Business laws don't exist naturally. Humans created this. And so I felt like that was very Capricorn and very of the mind, to create something without, and I guess that's why it's grounded, because it's a earth sign, and that's why it works. That's why people listen to it. That's why credit scores exist, you know. And so that's why it's under Capricorn. And then of course the natural sciences, so chemistry, physics, astronomy, that's all under Capricorn. Next is Taurus. So with Taurus, we have environmental science, geography, geology, sustainability. So like getting deep into the earth. Every time I think of Taurus, I think of like an abundant earth. So just like Tauruses love abundant material things, they should also love the abundance of the natural world. So like I always picture like this really green grassy meadow, where you can just like roll around in the grass and look up at the stars, and then you're like hugged by these mountains surrounding you, and with a bunch of flowers, like wild flowers, just in the sun. That's how I picture Taurus in my mind. And so that's part of the environmental science, but then it's also part of the decorative arts. So the interior, garden, furniture design, etc., all of these different things of how to bring the outside in. So these kind of decorative arts would all be made of wood, for instance, or metal. And so it's about bringing the natural beauty inside to make it beautiful on the inside. So yeah, that's Taurus. And so it actually kind of goes like with the whole home thing too, you know, of like wanting to be homey and like in your mind, like you want to feel safe in your mind, you want to feel homey in your mind. And even though you may feel like you have to like run it, quote unquote, like even if it's like your own just like personal finances, you know, like that's still business, and that's all in the material world because these numbers don't exist anywhere else. So it's just more for that. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to Virgo. So Virgo, they're very analytical. So I said that they were mathematics, so that includes statistics, geometry, math, and history. And what's really cool is that Virgo is also known as like the perfection of people, or like they try to be perfect, like they're all like, you know what I'm trying to say. Okay. And so I feel like math is the best way to represent that math is perfect because it comes from God. And that's why we see it reflected in so much of the natural world. You see it in so many places within the natural world, is what I'm trying to say. And so, yeah, so it just like goes with Virgo, again, being very analytical, seeking perfection, and then it also comes judgment if it's not perfect. So again, like all the earth signs, since it does come from the earth. Then we have the social sciences, also part of Virgo, because the other side of Virgo is like a very caring, kind, and like nurturing type, like just like Virgo, I feel like it's like a ladder of some sort. Like it's like they're just like, Virgos are there to support you and help you along your journey and to like love and care for you. And I kind of get them not confused, like I know the differences, but I kind of think of them as like an earthy Cancer, because Cancers can be kind of volatile because of like their sensitivity and their emotions, whereas Virgos are more like calm and centered, but they both have like those kinds of like mother-like nurturing qualities. So because of that, I said social sciences fit Virgo. So that includes education, social work, and economics. And interestingly enough, this is our first like contradiction, because on my chart, I said that social sciences are part of the spirit. So it's like, why are they showing up for the mind? So we'll see what comes up when we get to that part, to see if it actually aligns or not, but we'll keep that now for Virgo. So that is what I have for you for the mind. And so those two were the two individuals. So nobody has your same soul. Nobody has your same mind. They are individual things. Your soul is infinite and it has matter. Your mind is not infinite. You literally have to like break down walls in your mind in order to expand. And that's really hard to do. But the thing is that the mind is a projector of your thoughts onto reality. So the second that you can open up your mind, then you're going to have the life that you want. Your mind is the only limitation that you have. Then moving on to mind and body. Oh, did I mention that mind is non-matter too? Like when you die, your mind, it dies with you. Okay. So the body and the spirit, they're both collective. And then we do a little flip-flop here. The body is non-infinite, but it does have matter. So my body does not go on for infinity. It will die one day, and it's physical. And then the spirit is infinite. It can go on forever, and it's non-matter. I can't physically feel the energy that somebody or something gives off. I can just feel it. So we'll get into body after the break. I forgot to mention on the first commercial that if you have a book that you want to submit to Bellaspri Productions, you can go to Instagram, Bellaspri, Belaspri, and the first link in our bio is open for submissions. And so if you submit your book, if you think that your book would be a good fit for Grounded Spirits, for me to go over it, talk about it, what I do most of the time is I pull out really cool quotes and then discuss them further. So if you want me to do that to your book, submit it onto there and then we can talk about it. So yeah, bring it in. Okay, so here's where I got a little confused, because if you look at the one on Instagram, I have social sciences under body, because what my thinking is that the way that we interact, like when we're at a sporting event and doing the wave, that's a social science, right? Like the way that the body can just be one of a million and we can all like link up and like we could dance together and be in perfect harmony. The social science's aim is to understand human behavior. And so that's why I thought it was like connected to the body. But then, so crazy, I ended up finding, so I was talking about being like a polymath earlier, like with King Arthur and stuff, right? So I found this book about, it was like written in 2014, and it was about polymath leaders and saying that like everybody, all leaders, it's kind of like Socrates' philosopher king, that all leaders need to be educated in all subjects, because how can you lead if you don't understand? But here's the crazy part. He had a chart in there that was almost identical to mine, and I was like freaking out because like I made this on my own, like without looking at anybody's charts. Like I thought this was like novel. And then it goes back to that quote of there are no novel ideas, like every thought has already been thought. But I kind of like it. I was freaking out finding this thing because it's like my thinking is not alone. And so it makes me feel not alone, that like I'm not crazy, that other people, other scholars, they believe the same things that I believe. And so it's not about choosing between academia and spirituality. It's about integrating them and that other people will follow, or like that I'm following them without knowing it, that we're happening upon the same findings, which is really cool. Because when it comes to truth and knowledge, if multiple people are saying something without communicating, if they're coming up with these theories and these ideas separately, then that's how you know that it's real. At least that's one way to know that it's real. So I thought, and I saw that chart, and so then, side note really quick, Leonardo da Vinci also has a similar chart, and so I was freaking out about that too, because here's the crazy part about that one. So I was reading this book about polymath, right? It's by Peter Burke, and then he had a really great quote in it about something about like needing to know everything. I could actually pull it up. But anyway, so as I'm looking for this quote, the quote ended up being part of this Martin Kemp fellow. And so then I looked him up, and then I was like reading about him, and turns out he is the director of the other polymath book that I'm also reading. And so it was like this like really cool like full circle moment that like these people, like I'm part of this group. Like I kind of, it was like I found where I belong kind of thing. So like that was cool. Still can't find this quote, but what was I gonna say about that? Not sure. So we're moving on. So I really thought that social science was going to be about body, but then it wasn't really working out. Oh, because of that chart that guy was saying. So he was saying that that the body, and he agreed with me, saying that the body is like, it communicates through emotions, and that it has like all these, like it's very passionate. And so then he put art under the passionate. Okay, I found the quote. It says, in short, Leonardo worked on the assumption that all the apparent diversities of nature are symptoms of an inner unity. And so it was just about the whole thing about interacting with nature, that nature is us, we are nature. And then if things are chaotic on the outside, I mean, because we're chaotic on the inside. And so once we have that inner unity, it's like everything will come together. And so that's what brought me to Leonardo. Then I found out that he also had the same ideas as I do. And so that is what happened there. Okay, so now for this chart. So let me tell you about this book. It is by Michael Genovese. It's called Building Tomorrow's Leaders Today, Forming a Polymath Leader. And I'm trying to find the chart without much luck. But yeah, so in the chart he was saying that the body is the passion, and so therefore it is part of the arts. And then that's when I started thinking about it, like, yeah, that does make sense, because art is supposed to make you feel something. And art does make you feel closer to your body. So yeah, so I agreed. So then that's when we'll get into like the reason why. Maybe we'll just do it all together, huh? But it's here on page 77. So he says that the head is, and so for the head, the type is rational, the source is enlightenment. He said the enlightenment, so I'm thinking like he actually means like the age of reason. Or like through enlightenment thought of like scientific thought maybe, because the next thing says derived from the age of reason, rationality. Basis is in logic. Fields are philosophy and math. So I didn't say that it was philosophy, but maybe, okay, here we go. So he means philosophy as far as like logic. Like in college I took a logic course that was in philosophy, but it's like the whole, if this is A and then this is B, then this means C or whatever. So I feel like that way it is very mathematical when it comes to philosophy. But when I was talking about philosophy in the soul, I meant it more as when you're like seeking inside of yourself to understand like what you believe and why you believe it, and creating your own philosophy without reading anybody else, without being influenced by others, just by looking at within yourself. What do you come up with? And if you want to read somebody who did that in the 1670s, look up Zara Jacob. It's just Jacob with a Y instead of the J. And he wrote a treatise, or a hata, I think it's hatata, something like that. And he said that he was gonna get persecuted for being a scholar, and so then he like went to some cave and he was just like asking God all these questions, and then this is what he came up with. So there's that. The next thing that Michael Genovese says in The Future of Leadership. Oh, so it was the wrong book. Huh. Sorry. So it's still by the same guy, Michael A. Genovese, and this is called The Future of Leadership. I can't read. Oh, here we go. The future of leadership, leveraging influence in an age of hyper change. So basically he starts this book by saying that he's writing this book of what he expects 25 years from when this book was written in 2016. So he probably wrote it in 2015. So 2040. And so he's saying that there's going to be a need for these polymath leaders in order to like save humanity, basically. Okay, so then the next one is the heart. He says that the type is emotional. The source is neuroscience, derived from feelings and emotions. The basis is in passion, and the field is art and poetry. And then last we have the gut. So the type is intuitive. The source is educated guesses built on experiences. So like a trial and error, I guess he means. Derived from experience, reflected upon and internalized. Basis is an experience, and the field is self-awareness. So in mine, I would say that the gut means the soul, since the other is the body, and then the other one was the mind. Okay, so then let me tell you about why the social sciences are in the spirit, but we're going to take a very, very quick break. Okay, so with spirit, I said that it was the social sciences since we're switching with the body, and it actually makes sense because the social sciences, let's think about it, like sociology. Oh, that's what we didn't do. Oh my gosh, I'm over here skipping around. So the body is water, and so let's see what the what Ela Institute has to say about the subjects of the body. So the first one is Scorpio. So it says the evolution of the mind, body, and soul, archaeology, genetics, and positive psychology. So yeah, that I feel like that would fall under. Oh, well, I think, because these aren't art. Oh, okay, the next one is. So maybe with this part, it's more about like understanding the body. But I feel like that would be more mind, no? Well, maybe it's not the first one, it's just the next one, because the next one is literary and folk arts. This is still under Scorpio. So that's prose, poetry, rituals, quilting, pottery, etc. The next one is Cancer, and so here it says like human behavior, psychology, sociology, anthropology, or culinary arts and sciences, nutrition, hospitality, agriculture. So maybe Michael Genovese wasn't right, because now we're getting both water signs that are talking about social sciences. Interesting. The next one is Pisces. So, okay, this is just art. So maybe they're both, but I feel like art and social science is so different. Well, maybe let's just keep going. So Pisces is the visual arts, painting, photography, digital art, arts, media, and cultural studies. So that includes music, literature, poetry, and film. So that's for the body, even though there were a lot of social sciences, so I may have been right without Michael Genovese. So spirit, let's look into it. So spirit is the air signs. The air signs. So the first one we have here is Aquarius, and so Aquarius is the science, technology, and society, linguistics, history of science, ethics, etc. Then computer science, engineering, technology, AI. So it is very Aquarius-y. And I would kind of say that these are more social sciences, because even when it comes to engineering or like computer science, even though it is natural science based, since it is part of STEM, I could see it as social sciences because it's a bunch of people coming together to interact with each other. So computers, you're interacting with a computer, with people on the other side of the computer. Or like with engineering, you're interacting with people to like build something up, like little ants. So it's part of that sociology or like social science basis. And then even with like the science, technology, and society is in the name. So the next one is Gemini. So we have communication, so creative writing, public speaking, journalism, or interdisciplinary studies, so global studies, cognitive science, public health. Okay, so this is sounding very spirit-y. And actually, I would say that Aquarius is spirit-y too. So maybe spirit really is just interdisciplinary. We could just take art, or maybe we could just take out social sciences and then just leave the mind for just science in general. And then we have like the interdisciplinary for the mind. For not the mind, my bad. For spirit, maybe. That's the thing, is like we're figuring this out together. So I'd love your input. The next one is Libra. So we have human relationships. So that's conflict resolution, gender studies, and counseling, and physical art. So architecture, fashion, jewelry, sculpture, all about like elevating and like dressing up your body. But see, so they are very mixed. Like all of them had art and social sciences. So that part's a little confusing to me. But let's keep going and talking about the ways of knowing. So the body, it knows through spirituality. It knows through its senses. And the senses are spiritual because how do I put it? Like with your chakras and stuff, like how do you feel things? You feel them through your body, through your chakras, through like your senses, you know? It's all about getting information and being able to understand it on a spiritual level. The next one is, so for spirit, the ways of knowing is experience. So as you experience more things, see, these are all sorts of mixed up. So actually experience is through body, because your body will tense up because it knows through experience. So that part's wrong. And then spirit would make sense with spirituality. The next one is ways of expressing. So the body expresses through its emotions and the spirit expresses through its connections. So what I mean by connections is like when you first meet somebody and you just like feel inexplicably connected and you're just like vibing, you're flowing together and you have this connection, and that spirit that's connecting you to. And it's not just for a person, like when you're at a store and there's just like this item that you cannot go home without. That's the connection that spirit is gifting you. Next we have, that's it. Because next is the element. So we already talked about that with water and air and so on and so forth. So yeah, the body and spirit is a little tricky for me. Because your body is spiritual. Like we do have spiritual stuff, and like even like the electromagnetic field, it comes from the body. So like these are kind of like collapsible and they come together. So it's interesting, especially with the discipline. So I'm still going to think about it, and we'll come back a different time to talk about it. So one thing that I did not mention last episode that I said that I would is for the body, I talked about getting high before going to Pilates to see how I felt about it. And I don't think that weed is helping me connect with my body more. I think that it distracts me so that I can have a better workout because I'm more in my mind. And for me, I've never been able to tell the difference between strains, like indica or sativa or any kind of like specific strain. They all have the same effect on me. Like everything feels the same to me. And I don't know if I'm just like smoking it wrong, but like how can you smoke it wrong? And I really believe that weed as its own spirit knows what you need and it'll give you what you need. So yeah, for me, it's not really helping me connect with my body. So I just wanted to let you know because I felt like it was kind of like a cliffhanger that last time. So again, if you have any thoughts or want to help me out with the discipline between the body and the spirit, please hit me up on groundedspirits@gmail.com or groundedspirits on Instagram. And yeah, that is all that I have for you. I will see you next time. And we are going to be going through a book next time. So I'm really excited about that. Pull out all the cool quotes. And I will see you then. Bye, everybody.